Based on that lead, police dug up a spot in the Saknieo forest and discovered both victims buried together in a single grave, about 3 feet deep. Hey Tracers, welcome back to Trace Zero, the place where we break down real crime cases from all around the globe. Late last July, life completely shattered for a Russian family who'd been living in Thailand for years. Before everything went down, it was just a normal week. The two siblings were going about their daily lives, hanging out with friends, staying in touch with family, just doing their usual thing. But a single night changed everything, turning their lives into one of the most high-profile murder cases gripping both Thailand and Russia right now. When officers finally located them, they reported that both bodies were found stacked on top of each other in a deeply isolated stretch of woods. So, what actually happened to these two? Let's dive right into it, because you never know how deep this hole goes. In 2021, two Russian siblings, Diana Nazimova and her younger brother Roman Nazimov, began a new chapter in their lives. The two decided to leave Russia and move to Thailand to live with their biological mother, Zarina Nazimova, who had already settled there. Moving to Thailand was more than just a change of address. Diana and Roman had always hoped to start a new life together with their mother as a complete family. At the time, Diana was 18 years old, while Roman was 13. Despite the 5-year age gap, they shared a close bond. As the older sister, Diana was known to be mature and often felt responsible for her brother, while Roman grew into an obedient teenager who adored his sister. Information regarding their father was almost never made public. The figure who had always been by Diana and Roman's side was their mother, Zarina Nazimova. That's why this small family was better known as a Russian mother, living with her 2 children in Thailand. After moving from Russia, they settled in Bristol Park, Pattaya, a classic English-style residential complex located in the Hua Yai area of Pattaya, Thailand. The complex was known as a quiet residential area with high security, making it popular among foreigners and expats. Living there for a few years, life for the Nazimova family went on as usual. Diana and Roman went about their daily routines and often shared them on social media. Roman had a passion for all things automotive. He even appeared as a model on an Instagram account featuring videos of him riding motorcycles. Meanwhile, Diana was passionate about videography and frequently explored various spots in Thailand. On several occasions, she modeled in her own videos as well as with her friends. That talent and photogenic charm seemed to run in the family, as their mother, Zarina, also made several stylish appearances in various photos. Amidst what seemed like an ordinary life, Zarina knew her children's habits inside out. She knew when Diana and Roman usually left the house, when they'd return, down to the small daily routines that hardly ever changed. Nobody could have anticipated that the life they had built since 2021 would shatter in an instant. It all began with an activity that seemed so ordinary, yet it spiraled into one of the most high-profile crime cases in Thailand recently. Saturday, the 25th of July, 2026. By then, Diana was 22 years old and Roman was 18. That evening, Diana and Roman had returned to their respective rooms after having dinner with their mother, Zarina. Shortly after, both prepared to turn in for the night. Inside her room, Diana was still texting a friend when a knock came at the door. Diana set her phone on the bed and stood up to answer it. When the door opened, Roman was standing outside. Feeling a bit annoyed that her rest had been interrupted, Diana asked what he wanted. Roman said he was feeling a little hungry and planned to head to a 7-Eleven to grab some snacks and a few running out essentials, and he invited Diana to tag along. Diana was initially reluctant since she was already ready for bed and didn't want to step out, but remembering a few items she wanted to get herself, she eventually agreed. They decided to head out a few hours later. Long story short, time slipped into Sunday early morning, the 26th of July, 2026, around 4 a.m. Roman asked his mother for permission to go to the 7-Eleven with Diana. Zarina actually suggested they wait until sunrise, but Roman insisted, arguing that the roads would only get busier later in the day, especially since it was the weekend. In the end, Zarina let her 2 children go. A few minutes later, Roman pulled his black Honda ADV 150 out of the garage. Diana hopped on the back seat, and they left the housing estate, heading toward the 7-Eleven. At first, everything seemed completely normal. The streets were dead quiet with only a few other motorbikes passing by. Before reaching the 7-Eleven, a few minutes in, Roman suddenly noticed a motorcycle trailing them from behind. He checked his side mirrors several times, and every time he looked, the bike was still there. Meanwhile, Diana started getting confused as Roman rode past the row of shops that was supposed to be their destination. Thinking her brother missed the turn, she asked why they hadn't stopped. Roman didn't answer right away. He kept speeding along the Jomtien Highway Outer Ring Road, which was completely deserted at the time, while the bike behind kept tailing them. Seeing Roman keep driving with no clear destination, Diana started to panic. Raising her voice, she asked again why they were riding deeper into an increasingly isolated and uninhabited area. Only then did Roman admit that they had been followed the whole time. Hearing this, Diana was instantly overcome with anxiety. She quickly pulled out her phone and sent a single text to her mother, a message so brief, containing just one word: urgent. Shortly after she sent the message, the rider who had been tailing them finally pulled up close. The man was named Tana Kurtong, locally known by his nickname, Pong. Riding behind him was another man named Tong Chai Srinil, or Tong. Pong then signaled for Roman to pull his bike over. As Diana glanced toward the 2 men, she noticed that Pong and Tong were wearing Thai police uniforms. Because of that, she immediately told Roman that the people following them were likely police officers, not criminals. Hearing his sister, Roman pulled the bike over to the side of the road. Pong stopped right behind them and asked Diana and Roman to step off the motorcycle. Both complied without resistance. But ever since stepping off, Roman noticed Tong's eyes locked onto his Honda ADV. An uneasy feeling crept in immediately. Without drawing any attention, Roman slipped his bike key into his pants pocket. Pong began firing off questions, asking where they were headed at such an hour. Diana answered honestly, saying they just wanted to grab a few items from the convenience store. Pong then asked where they lived, and Diana answered truthfully again, assuming the 2 men were just officers on patrol. Hearing that they lived in an upscale complex, Pong and Tong exchanged a glance. That was the moment they realized Diana and Roman were from a wealthy immigrant family. In a matter of seconds, the mood shifted drastically. Without warning, Pong drew a handgun that had been concealed in his pocket. The weapon was pointed straight at Roman. With that threat hanging over them, Pong ordered Diana and Roman to walk into the CO forest, far from where they had stopped. Left with no other choice, the siblings walked side by side into the forest, leaving their bike on the side of the road. Meanwhile, Tong got off his motorcycle and followed behind them, keeping an eye on the surroundings. Moments after they entered the forest area, 2 other men caught up to the location using a pickup truck. These 2 were Chat Kanan, commonly known as Ball, and Atsadang, who went by the nickname Fluke. Wasting no time, Ball immediately pulled out a tool to hotwire Roman's Honda ADV without a key. At the same time, Fluke took Pong's motorcycle using a spare key. Afterward, they brought both motorcycles toward an old cemetery called Tungluang. On the other side, Diana and Roman continued walking deeper into the forest at gunpoint under Pong's watch. The further they went, the quieter and more isolated the surrounding area became. Upon reaching a location the perpetrator deemed safe enough, Pong ordered Roman to raise both hands. It was at that second Roman's gut feeling grew even stronger. He began to realize that the man before him was no police officer. Diana realized the exact same thing, her voice trembling. She broke down in tears and begged Pong and Tong to let them go. Diana even promised that they wouldn't report the incident to anyone, but the plea did not change the 2 perpetrators' intentions at all. Amidst the weapon pointed right at him, Roman was actually far more worried about his sister's safety than his own. He immediately pulled Diana behind his body, as if trying to serve as her final shield. That action, however, provoked Pong's anger. Tensions escalated further when Roman bravely swung a punch at Pong, shouting that they weren't cops. A few seconds later, without hesitation or warning, Pong immediately fired a single shot. The bullet hit Roman's stomach. Roman instinctively clutched his wound, his face completely shocked as he realized blood was oozing from his body. Seeing her brother shot, Diana screamed hysterically, crying out Roman's name. She kept begging Pong to stop, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. Seconds later, Pong pulled the trigger again. A second shot went off, this time striking a fatal spot, his head. Instantly, Roman collapsed to the ground. He died right there after trying to protect his sister. As Roman fell, Diana, panicking even more, tried to run for her life, but Pong moved faster. He managed to grab hold of Diana's arm before she could get away. Diana fought back with all her strength to break free, but instead of escaping, she was kicked down to the dirt. Pong then grabbed Diana's hair with one hand while using his other hand to slide the gun back into his pocket, before repeatedly beating her in the face until her nose bled. Despite enduring continuous violence, Diana hadn't given up. She tried to escape once more, but her attempt failed again after Pong kicked her down to the ground. Meanwhile, Tong just stood a few meters away without joining the attack. His only job was to keep watch over the surroundings. Pong then walked over to Diana, who was lying helpless, and repeatedly delivered blow after blow, inflicting increasingly severe injuries upon her. Bit by bit, Diana's strength slipped away. She was no longer able to fight back. In that dying state, she managed to lift her eyes one last time, looking at her younger brother lying not far from her. Moments later, her gaze shifted toward Tong, who just stood there doing nothing to help, before finally locking eyes with Pong, who was still standing right in front of her. Shortly after, everything went dark. Diana passed away from severe head trauma and extensive injuries all over her body. After ensuring Diana and Roman were no longer breathing, Pong realized they didn't have much time as signs of dawn began to break over the sky. The longer they stayed at the scene, the greater the risk of their crime being exposed. Wasting no time, Pong ordered Tong to dig a hole using a shovel previously brought by Ball and Fluke. In the dark of the forest, Tong dug a trench 1 meter deep, while Pong kept watch to ensure no one passed through the area. Once the hole was complete, the two bound Diana and Roman's bodies. Tong tied Diana's hands behind her back, while Pong tied Roman's hands and feet. Before placing the bodies into the grave, Pong even found the nerve to kick Roman's body, despite the victim already being dead. Earlier, the perpetrators had also stripped the victims of all their belongings, including their phones, wallets, and other personal items. Both bodies were finally placed into the exact same pit, stacked on top of each other. The dirt was filled back in, leveled out, and covered with dried grass and leaves to erase any trace. They did all of this before the sun began to rise. A short while later, once they felt confident the burial site looked unsuspicious, Pong and Tong left the forest toward a hidden spot prepared for disposing of evidence. There, Ball and Fluke were already waiting. Without much talk, the four perpetrators immediately stripped down the victim's Honda ADV until it barely resembled a motorcycle. All of its components were then brought to the old cemetery near the forest and buried across several different spots, so the vehicle would be hard to identify if it were ever found. They were convinced that by disposing of the bodies and destroying the vehicle in such short order, no evidence would remain to link them to the crime. Yet, as it turned out, the plan didn't go as seamlessly as they hoped. While the process of burying the bike parts was still underway, the four perpetrators' movements began drawing the attention of local residents and sanitation workers, who spotted them going back and forth into the forest area, carrying shovels. Sensing that something was off, a few people decided to take a closer look. Spotting the locals approaching, the four perpetrators panicked instantly. They abruptly halted everything, abandoned the scene as quickly as possible, and fled before anyone could uncover what they had just buried beneath the dirt. A few residents who witnessed the event then reported it to Chakrit Bunmak, a local security officer. Thinking the activity seemed suspicious, Chakrit immediately relayed the information to the Huayai police, though at the time, both Chakrit and the nearby locals still assumed the four men were merely causing a public nuisance. Nobody had yet realized that they had just covered up a murder. Long story short, on the other hand, Diana and Roman's family had absolutely no idea what had actually happened. Up until noon, Zarina was still trying to locate her two children. At first, she assumed Diana and Roman had merely run into some trouble on the road, but aside from that brief text message reading urgent, there was no further word from either of them, and their phones were completely unreachable. Growing worry eventually pushed Zarina to make a move. On Sunday afternoon, after various search efforts yielded no results, she went to the Pattaya police to report Diana and Roman missing. That report marked the beginning of the investigation into the disappearance of the Russian siblings, with no one yet aware that both had fallen victim to murder hours prior. The missing persons report for Diana Nazimova and Roman Nazimova immediately triggered a massive investigation by the Thai police. Given that both victims were Russian nationals, the case quickly drew high priority from authorities. The Royal Thai Police, alongside the tourist police, formed an investigative task force to accelerate the search and uncover what really transpired. The investigators' first step was reviewing CCTV footage from the Bristol Park Pattaya complex all the way to the main roads the victims were presumed to have taken. Dozens of cameras were scrutinized frame by frame to reconstruct Diana and Roman's final journey. From the CCTV footage, police learned that around 4 a.m., the Honda ADV ridden by Roman with Diana on the back left their residential compound. About 25 minutes later, the bike was still captured cruising along Jom Tien Road before stopping near Wat Pangai to talk to another motorcyclist. 2 minutes later, both vehicles rode off toward the area beneath the Bon Chok Ngao flyover. After passing that point, Diana and Roman's trail vanished completely from the surveillance network. In addition to examining CCTV, investigators requested data from telecom operators to trace both victims' cell phone signals. The results showed that the last active ping from Diana and Roman's phones originated from the Sak Nyo forest area. That finding pivoted the investigative focus directly toward the area. Police began combing through the terrain while questioning local residents. This led to a crucial lead. Several locals admitted to spotting 4 men carrying shovels and acting suspiciously in the forest area bordering the old Tung Luang cemetery on Sunday morning. At first, the information seemed minor. But because the location sat close to where the victims' phone signals went cold, investigators decided to follow up. On Wednesday, the 29th of July, 2026, the investigation team conducted an excavation at the old cemetery. Beneath the surface, police unearthed components of Diana and Roman's Honda ADV, which had been stripped down and buried across several separate pits. The discovery served as concrete proof of a systematic attempt to destroy evidence and throw off the investigation. From that moment on, what began as a missing persons case officially turned into an investigation of premeditated murder, robbery, and destruction of evidence. The forensic lab team subsequently secured all vehicle parts along with various other pieces of evidence retrieved at the scene. Fingerprints, biological traces, and other physical evidence were thoroughly analyzed. At the same time, police re-examined CCTV footage in the Hua Yai area as well as routes leading out of Chonburi. From that analysis, the perpetrators' identities began to take shape. One name that caught the investigators' immediate attention was Tanakare Tong, better known as Pong. The 43-year-old was no stranger to law enforcement. He carried a lengthy rap sheet covering narcotics, illegal firearm possession, and armed robbery. In fact, just about 2 months prior, Pong had been released from prison after serving time. Police suspicions deepened as the location where the victims' bike parts were buried sat uncomfortably close to his residence. The investigation then led to Tongchai Srinil, a close associate of Pong. Police gathered statements revealing that on the night following the incident, Pong and Tong returned home covered in mud. When questioned by family, the pair claimed they had just gotten back from fishing despite returning empty-handed, before quickly changing outfits and heading out again on a red motorcycle. That statement further solidified suspicions that both were directly involved in Diana and Roman's disappearance. On Thursday, the 30th of July, 2026, police detected that Pong and Tong had fled Chonburi province. The two were suspected to be heading east, aiming to escape across the Cambodian border. Realizing the two suspects were at high risk of fleeing the country, regional police immediately coordinated with the Sakeo Provincial Police, immigration officers, and border patrol authorities. Checkpoints were tightened, while armed tactical teams and K-9 tracker units were deployed to narrow down the fugitives' escape routes. The coordinated effort eventually paid off. On Friday afternoon, the 31st of July 2026, Pong and Tong were located inside a longan orchard in Sa Kaeo province, not far from the Cambodian border. Upon spotting the police officers, The pair made a desperate attempt to dash into the forest, but the prearranged cordon rendered their escape impossible. Without a chance to offer any meaningful resistance, Pong and Tong were arrested, completely unclothed. Upon arriving at the interrogation room, the contrast in their demeanors was stark. Tong immediately confessed to his involvement, claiming he was merely following Pong's orders after being threatened at gunpoint. Conversely, Pong, as the shooter, initially denied all charges, but after investigators presented the overwhelming evidence and cross-referenced it with Tong's statement, he finally admitted to everything. During interrogation, Pong also revealed that their original intent was strictly robbery, but when Roman fought back first, he lost his temper, ultimately deciding to execute both siblings. From that moment on, their plan shifted. The motorcycle they initially wanted to steal was instead broken down and buried to cover up their crime. Long story short, that very same night, both suspects were escorted back to Pattaya to point out the exact site where Diana and Roman's bodies were buried. Following those directions, police excavated a spot in the Sa Kao forest, uncovering both victims buried together in a single pit about 1 meter deep. Preliminary examinations revealed that Roman had suffered gunshot wounds to his hand, abdomen, and head, while Diana was found with numerous fatal traumatic injuries to her face and body. Yet, the investigation was far from over. As interrogation pressed on, Pong confessed to his involvement in another unsolved case that had previously baffled police. Armed with this confession, investigators excavated another site, roughly 2 kilometers away from where Diana and Roman were found. There, police unearthed 3 more bodies, all belonging to a single Thai family who had been reported missing about 2 months prior. That discovery transformed the investigation of Diana and Roman's murders into the unraveling of a much larger criminal saga than anyone had initially anticipated. Meanwhile, over the next few days, police also apprehended Chatkanan, alias Ball, and Atsadang, alias Fluke, who allegedly assisted in destroying and burying the victim's motorcycle to eliminate physical evidence. Both were subsequently hit with multiple charges related to conspiracy to commit murder and destruction of evidence. Given the immense public outcry, the Prime Minister of Thailand personally visited the site, affirming the government's full commitment to seeing justice served to the fullest extent of the law. By the 6th of August, 2026, the case files for all 4 suspects were officially submitted to the Pattaya Provincial Court, charging them with premeditated murder, armed robbery, and various other felony counts that carry a potential death penalty. For the Nazimova family, the conclusion of the police investigation brought no relief to their suffering. Zarina Nazimova now had to face the devastating reality that her 2 children, who had come to Thailand hoping to rebuild their lives together as a complete family, were returning home in caskets. Throughout the frantic search, she had held on to the desperate hope that Diana and Roman would be found alive, only for those hopes to shatter when their bodies were retrieved from the shallow forest grave. Before the media, Zarina appeared completely crushed, stating that her only wish had been to see her children come home safely, a wish that would never come true. The case sparked widespread international outrage, as beyond involving 2 young Russian nationals, the tragedy severely tarnished Pattaya's image as a top-tier international tourist destination. The Prime Minister of Thailand expressed his deep condolences and issued a formal apology to Zarina for the tragedy that had transpired. He further ordered law enforcement agencies to step up street patrols and tighten security across high-risk areas. Meanwhile, as legal proceedings move forward, no official public statement has been issued by either the Russian government or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation regarding the case. Nevertheless, as Russian citizens falling victim to a major crime abroad, Diana and Roman's tragedy continues to resonate strongly within the local Russian community in Thailand, who are closely monitoring the case from the ongoing investigation to the upcoming trial. This tragedy stands as a chilling reminder that crime can strike anyone, even during a routine outing. In the end, the law may expose the perpetrators and the courts may deliver a fitting sentence, but none of it can ever restore Diana and Roman's lives or heal their mother's heartbreak. What are your thoughts on this case? Feel free to drop a comment below. I'm curious to read what you think. Thank you for watching till the end, and if you're still watching this, maybe you're looking for the same thing I am.